Welcome back to the War Room. Today we're going to be looking at the Idoneth Deepkin's Armies of Renown. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff here. One of them I think is very playable. The other one I think is going to take a lot of practice to try and figure out. It means you get to run a whole bunch of eels, a whole bunch of turtles, a whole bunch of sharks, or the other one you get to use just Namarti, so you can have as many thralls as you want, as many reavers as you want, and as many Isharan wizards as you want as well. So two very interesting, very different armies. The playstyles are going to be very, very different, but I think both of them have some play, one of them being a little easier, in my opinion, to play with. But let's get started. So we're going to start off here with the first Phalanx of Ionrach. When you pick the Idoneth Deepkin faction for your army, you can choose for it to be the first Phalanx of Ionrach, Army of Renown. If you do so, use the faction rules in this section instead of the Idoneth Deepkin faction rules. Every unit in your army must be drawn from the units listed in the roster options box below. All units in your army gain the first Phalanx keyword. So your roster options are Volturnos, High King of the Deep, must be included and must be your general. Any Achillean units, so this is turtles, sharks, eels, the Thrallmaster, and then you cannot include regiments of renown. What do we get for battle traits here? The first one is the last living Sithai. The friendly Volturnos has strike first. You take him because you have to, and he's going to be strike first, which is nice. He's still only Rend 1, which is not that great, but he will be striking first, which is nice. And then once per turn per army in your hero phase, we have the teachings of Asidrazor. I'm going to say it as Asidrazor. Correct me if I'm wrong. That's just how I'm going to say it. You gain D3 Asidrazor points. In your hero phase, you roll a D3. You get that many Asidrazor points. Fairly straightforward. And then what this does for you is throughout your turn, you can use the points that you have to do certain things. So the first one is called the Shield of Ulchis. This is in your movement phase. You must spend one Asidrazor point each time a friendly first Phalanx unit uses this ability. Pick a friendly unit in combat to use this ability. For the rest of the turn, that unit can use a retreat ability and still use shoot and or charge abilities later in the turn. No mortal damage is inflicted by that unit by retreat abilities. You can use this on everything. I see this being very effective with like the turtle, because one of the biggest parts of the turtle's profile is that shooting attack. 4 attacks, hitting on 3s, wounding on 2s, Rend 1, or if it's into monsters, Rend 2, damage 3 is very, very strong no matter what you shoot into. So being able to retreat, shoot, and then charge him back in, get those impact hits again, I think is very, very strong. Same with the eels. The eels being able to charge back in and get those impact hits for the Morsar and getting that extra damage on the charge, very strong. And then in the charge phase, you can use the Spear of Aspharin. You must spend one Asidrazor point each time a friendly first Phalanx unit uses this ability. Pick a friendly unit that is not in combat to use this ability. Add 1 to charge rolls for that unit for the rest of the turn. Pretty straightforward here, +1 to charge. Great. If you're, you can't get so close to someone, you're 7, 8, 9 inches away, getting +1 to charge. Excellent. In your combat phase, you can use the Sword of Gwynar. You must spend 1 Asidrazor point each time a friendly first Phalanx unit uses this ability. Pick a friendly unit in combat to use this ability. That unit has strike first for the rest of the turn. These are nice because it's not a once per turn per army kind of a thing. If you rolled on your Asidrazor D3, if you rolled 3 and you just wanted everybody to be strike first, you could use that to just make everybody strike first. It's awesome. Or you could use this combo where you can retreat back out using the Shield of Ulchis, and then you can use the Sword of Gwynar to be strike first after you've retreated and charged. So I think that's a pretty awesome combo there. Very interesting. With these battle traits and how Armies of Renown work, you're not going to be getting the tides. So ignore the tides. You don't get those if you're running this Army of Renown. It's kind of a bummer, but I think the abilities are strong enough to make up for that, because you can still get strike first, and it's not just on a turn. You can kind of choose how you want to do it. And you get retreat and charge back, which you don't get in the tides at all. And then the Artifact of Power is the Crest of Ionrach. This unit has a ward of 6+. Obviously, you can't put this on Volturnos. I would love to put it on Volturnos and give him a ward save because he's so flimsy, but you can put this on an Achillean King. You can put this on Thrallmaster. You can put this on whoever. I would probably say it's going to be on your Achillean King because you can only take Achillean units. So that's probably who this is going on to. Give him a ward save, make him a little tankier, even if it is only a 6-up ward. And then the heroic trait, once per battle, this is a reaction. When you declare an Siege Resort ability for a friendly first Phalanx unit wholly within 12 inches of this unit, no Siege Resort points are spent to use that ability. Potentially, if you rolled on that D3 at the beginning of the turn, you got a 3, potentially you could use 4 abilities in the turn. It's a once per battle, so it lets you do 1, but you don't have to spend any points on it, which is very, very good. So you can make someone strike first just because you want to. It does have to be wholly within 12 inches of this guy, but if this is on the Achillean King, he's going to be right up in the thick of things because you want him to be giving off that -1 to rend buff that he has. And then something that I think is the coolest part of this is the Beast Bond traits. It's very similar to like the monstrous traits that some armies got with Scourge of Gyran and what armies used to have in 3rd edition. So a Beast Bond trait is a unique enhancement that can be given to first Phalanx cavalry units. A unit can only have 1 Beast Bond trait. So the first one is Void Chill Darkness. Subtract 1 from hit rolls for attacks that target this unit if this unit charged this turn. So you go blasting into something, attack coming back onto you are a -1 to hit. Seems really awesome. You throw this on your eels, you retreat them out, and you charge them back in again, and you just keep doing that. I think that combo is very, very strong and very interesting. And then you've got Deep Connection. Ignore the effect of the companion weapon ability on this unit's weapons. You're probably asking, why do we need this? It's because Volturnos gives the +1 attack buff once per battle. When he does that buff, it doesn't affect companion attacks, which is a huge part of the Idoneth Deepkin. So if you throw the Deep Connection onto your eels, your 6-pack of Morsar Guard, and you use Volturnos' once per battle buff, everybody, all those eels are getting 4 attacks instead of 3. Very, very strong. It is essentially just for a once per battle, one-time thing, whereas Void Chill Darkness is each time you charge. So you kind of have to figure out if you're going to go Alpha Strike someone, probably give everybody Deep Connection, so that you're going to be once per battle just obliterating everything. The last one is the Swift Finned Skirmisher. This is a reaction when you declare a redeploy command for this unit. If you roll a 1 through 3 when determining the distance that this unit can move, you can use a value of 4 instead. So you're just automatically, when you redeploy, at least running 4 away, which is good, but I don't think it's better than -1 to hit when you charge or ignoring the companion attacks to get that buff once per battle. I really like this. I think these are very, very strong abilities and traits and things like that. So I also, in preparation to make this video, I kind of made a little bit of a list to kind of show what I think would be very fun. So obviously, you got Volturnos in there. I'm running 2 units of 3 Ishlaen Guard, an Achillean Leviathan, and then a unit of reinforced Morsar Guard. So I don't know exactly how I would be running this, but this Army of Renown is built just to fight. Like, you don't have any wizards. You are just going and you are just fighting. In my 2nd regiment, I've got the Achillean King with 2 Achillean Alopexes and Achillean Thrallmaster. I've got the Alopexes with the Harpoons, which is the anti-monster shots, because we're seeing a lot more monsters. That is the list I'm considering running with this. The only reason the Thrallmaster is in there is because I had 90 points left over. Threw him in there because he is an Achillean unit. He's just going to probably sit on an objective and kind of hang out, probably by the boat, and just sit there, be obscured, call it a day. But as far as Beast Bond traits go, the Morsar Guard, I would probably give them the Deep Connection so that when I do get that once per battle buff of +1 attacks, the eels themselves, the mounts, are getting that +1 attacks and going up to 4 attacks each. You want everything to be on the charge because the Ishlaen Guard get a 5-up ward when they charge. The Leviathan gets impact hits when he charges. The Morsar Guard also get impact hits when they charge. So you want all of this stuff to be charging. If you want that +1 attack buff to go off and you want it to hit all of your eels to get more damage in, that's another way to go, because you can say, oh, all of these guys are going to be striking first, and we're just going to hit you all at once and just obliterate half your army before you even have a chance to swing back. I think that's really strong. You can also say, oh, all this stuff is charging striking first, and then when you hit me back, you're -1 to hit if you choose to give the Ishlain Guard or the Morsar Guard Beast Bond trait. The Leviathan can't use a Beast Bond trait because he's a monster, but he's the Leviathan, so he's just awesome. And then the Sharks, you don't really want the Sharks to be in combat because they're not that good in combat. You want them to be shooting stuff, tying things down, running around, getting onto objectives, and avoiding all the combat while your castle of eels and turtles go in there and wreak havoc. But that's kind of the list I would consider running for them. Once again, Volturnos, 2 units of 3 Ishlain Guard, Achillean Leviathan, a unit of reinforced Morsar Guard, and then in the other regiment, the Achillean King, 2 Achillean Alopexes with the Harpoon Launchers and the Achillean Thrallmaster to fill in the rest of those points. It comes out to exactly 2,000 points. You aren't getting Achillean Beastmasters because you don't get the battle formations, but I think everything striking first and you picking something to all-out attack is going to kind of even that out a little bit. And then moving on to the next Army of Renown, the Wardens of the Chorrileum. This one is such a different take on how I think every Idoneth Deepkin player plays the game, because we all love our eels, our turtles, our sharks. We love to have all these fish flying around, all this cavalry, and this Army of Renown is completely the opposite of that. So, when you pick the Idoneth Deepkin faction for your army, you can choose for it to be a Wardens of the Chorrileum Army of Renown. If you do so, use the faction rules in this section instead of Idoneth Deepkin faction rules. Every unit in your army must be drawn from the units listed in the roster options box below. All units in your army gain the Chorrileum keyword. Eidolon of Mathland, Aspect of the Sea, or Eidolon of Mathland, Aspect of the Storm. One of these units must be included. No more than one can be included. So as I understand that, you can only take one Eidolon. Maybe you can take one of each. I'm not 100% sure. I've built out a list that just has one of these Eidolons. You can take one Eidolon, any Isharon units, which are your wizards, any Namarti units, which are the Thralls and the Reavers, and then any Achillean infantry units, which is the Thrallmaster. You cannot include regiments of renown. So this Army of Renown is just bodies on bodies on bodies. You're just bringing as many Thralls, as many Reavers as you can, all your little foot heroes. You're just going to have a ton of bodies on the board, which I think is very interesting. Our buddy Ben, he plays Dark Oath. He actually went 5-0 in a tournament a little while ago, and it was just the pressure of so many bodies, and Dark Oath, they can bring them back, on a 4+ if they've died. So knowing that if you kill stuff, it's coming back is just insane to me. This army is very similar. You're just bringing as many bodies as you can, trying to just gunk everything up. So the battle traits: the Ocean Conceals, once per battle per army in the deployment phase. This ability must be used to deploy the friendly Chorrileum Eidolon. Set up the friendly Chorrileum Eidolon in reserve, awaiting a summons. It has now been deployed. So you take your Eidolon, and he's in the Ether Sea. And just wait, just hang on a second here. And then you can call forth the Tsunami. So once per battle per army in your combat phase, you can only use this ability if you have 3 or more Chorrileum Spirit Points. We'll get to that in a second. Pick a friendly unit awaiting the summons to be the target. Set up the target anywhere on the battlefield, then inflict D3 mortal damage on each enemy unit in combat with it. I like to think of this as the Bunker Buster. If you have your Aspect of the Storm set up anywhere on the battlefield. This isn't outside of 3, outside of 7, outside of 9. It is anywhere on the battlefield. So, and it's in the combat phase. So you pop up and say D3 mortal damage to everybody that's in combat with me, and then you're just right in the thick of things. I think that's hilarious. I think that's awesome. It's the reason why I think taking the Aspect of the Storm in this Army of Renown is a little better than Aspect of the Sea, but Aspect of the Sea is still really good for the magic side of this. I think the Aspect of the Storm is going to be the way to go. Giving out that +1 to wound to the Thralls is going to be really good as well. The Spirit of the Chorrileum, each turn you can gain up to 1 Chorrileum Spirit Point. You gain 1 Chorrileum Spirit Point the first time one of the following occurs in a turn. You make an unmodified casting roll of 8 or more for a friendly Isharon wizard. An enemy unit is destroyed while it is within 12 inches of any friendly Isharon units, or a friendly unit is destroyed while it is wholly within 12 inches of any friendly Isharon units, or while it is contesting an objective you control. It's a little tricky. Casting an unmodified 8 with one of your wizards means probably take as many wizards as you can to make this work. And you kind of need to, because you need the points, because it's tough to fill out 2,000 points of Namarti. Casting an 8 gets you a Chorrileum point. And keep in mind, you can only get 1 per Chorrileum Spirit Point per turn. So my turn, if any of that happens, I get 1. And it should, because you should have an Isharon unit contesting an objective you control. That's a fairly easy one to get. Destroying units or your units getting destroyed is kind of tough on you. That's where it gets tricky bringing the Eidolon in, is because you have to have 3 of those spirit points. So if everything went exactly according to plan, you could get one on the battlefield. Top of turn 2 is the earliest you could do it. And you should be able to get it on turn 2. But you set up your turn 1 to kind of figure out, where am I going to be going in? And then turn 2, Eidolon's coming in, Thralls are coming in, Reavers are shooting as much as they can, with the obscuring rules kind of making things a little trickier. And then once your Eidolon has come up, you can use the Wrath of the Mathlan. Once per turn per army in any combat phase, pick a friendly Chorrileum Eidolon unit that has not used any rampage abilities this turn to use this ability. That unit can use 2 fight abilities this phase. After the first is used, however, that unit has strike last for the rest of the turn. The unit using this ability cannot use any other rampage abilities for the rest of the turn. Let me set the stage here. Eidolon pops up of the Storm, because he's the one that's going to be fighting and hitting super hard. And this isn't a once per battle. This is any combat phase. He can use this fight twice. So he goes, you hit hard, you get clapped back with whatever you get clapped back with, and then your Thrall Master attacks. And after he attacks, he triggers a unit of Thralls. And depending on where your Eidolon is, those Thralls are going to be +1 to wound and be crit 2 hits from the Thrall Master. I can kind of see how Games Workshop is cooking, how they're chefing this up. It makes sense to me. But it's a little tricky. I think it's a lot harder to play this Army of Renown compared to the other one, because you're using all Namarti units. You just do have a ton of stuff on the board, though, which is great. Moving on to the Artifacts of Power. The Ammonite Carnix. Once per battle in your hero phase, pick a friendly Chorrileum Namarti unit that has been destroyed to be the target. Set up a replacement unit with half the number of models from the target unit, rounding up, wholly within 12 inches of this unit and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. You get some recursion, right? So you send in a unit of 20 Thralls, they get obliterated by whatever they hit. You get to bring back half of that unit. So you get to bring back 10 guys, and it's wholly within 12 inches of wherever the unit that's holding this thing is, outside of 9 of all enemy units, which is pretty awesome. So they can you can come back once per game, which is cool. It's not a thing that the Idoneth Deepkin have had a whole lot, so I really like that. And then the heroic traits. While this unit and a friendly Chorrileum Namarti unit are contesting the same objective, this unit has a control score of 10 that cannot be modified. So as long as this guy, whoever's holding this, probably your Eidolon, maybe one of your little foot heroes, as long as they're contesting an objective with a Namarti unit, this thing has control 10. So the Eidolon's already control 5. Bumping it up to control 10 is not terrible. You do have to be on the objective with another unit contesting. So interesting there. I don't think it's going to matter too much. I think it's going to be pretty obvious. I think this unit is kind of going to be like have the snowball effect. Like, you're going to get into things, and if you roll well and things go well, you're going to kind of wipe. Maybe not wipe, but you're going to do a lot of damage and pick up a lot of things off the board. But if it doesn't go well and you don't make your charges and things like that, these guys are just going to kind of get obliterated, I feel like. And then the spell lores, we've got the Essence of the Chorrileum. This goes off on a 6. Pick a friendly Chorrileum wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible friendly Chorrileum unit wholly within 12 inches of them to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. If the target is Namarti, you can return d6 slain models to it. Otherwise, heal d3. This is your unlimited spell. You're going to have a lot of ways to bring back models, bring back units, heal your guys. I think it's very, very interesting. And then Slipstream. This goes off on a 6. Pick a friendly Chorrileum wizard to cast this spell. Pick a visible friendly Chorrileum unit that is not in combat and is wholly within 12 inches of them to be the target. Then make a casting roll of 2d6. Each model in the target unit can move up to d6 inches. That move cannot pass through or end within the combat range of an enemy unit. This just is a d6 movement, essentially, just to help you kind of move a little faster up the board. If you've got a unit that's really far behind and you want to get them up closer, get them into combat, use this, because then you can still do your move after. It's not like they're being removed and set up on the battlefield. So they move up to d6 inches, which, I mean, if you roll a 1, womp womp, that's going to happen a lot. I like the spell lore. I like the healing aspect of it, because healing d6 Namarti is going to feel really cool, especially because you've got like the Soul Render, who can just bring back, d3 guys from 3 units. So you got a lot of ways to keep your guys alive. And then the Manifestation lore, you have the Incarnate of the Deep. The Incarnate's super cool. It's a new model, new to the army. It goes off on an 8, so if there's not one already on the board, roll 2d6. If you get it, set up an Incarnate of the Deep wholly within 12 inches of the caster, visible to them and more than 9 inches from all enemy units. If you're looking for what the Incarnate of the Deep does, go look at my Idoneth Deepkin army review for the new Idoneth Deepkin book. He's in there. He's really cool. The little tendrils do damage. He does damage. He's also kind of just like a big fat screen because he's a humongous base. He does a lot of really good things for your army. But that is the Army of Renown for the Wardens of the Chorrileum. I have somewhat crafted a list. I don't really know how it performs. I'll read it off kind of what I've built for you guys and leave a comment if this is just stupid and a terrible idea, but this is about as good as I could come up with. So in my general's regiment, I've got the Eidolon of Mathland aspect of the storm. I want him to be in there fighting. I want him to be deep striking because like I said, top of turn 2, getting him in there and getting your thralls in there, I think is going to really make a difference. And then in his regiment, I've got 3 units of reinforced thralls, so 60 thralls. That's a ton of bodies to throw at things, and it's a total of 600 points outside of the Eidolon. So thralls are cheap. Throw them at whatever you want to throw them at. You can also, I think, using the Scourge of Gyran for the time being, because you can do that 6-inch hit and run after these guys have attacked, I think is an interesting play. That's first regiment. Once again, I don't know how well I've been able to build these regiments. I've been trying to figure out how to get everything to fit, but there's a lot of things in this army that in the list building you can't put certain heroes with other certain heroes' regiments, and so it's kind of just really messy. So Regiment 1 is the Achillean Thrallmaster, so he's going to be giving out that crit 2 hits to the Thralls, and if he fights, the Thralls get to fight right after him. It's great. And then he's got 2 units of reinforced Namarti Reavers. This is kind of where I don't know if I would want Reavers or just take more Thralls, because with all of the obscuring terrain seasonal rules, the Reavers are not going to have as many targets to shoot at, and it's only a 12-inch range, so they got to be right up in the thick of things. 40 Reavers, I think, is a lot of fun. So I've got 40 Reavers in this list, 60 Thralls. And then Regiment 2, I've got the Isharon Tidecaster, and in his regiment, I've got the Isharon Soul Render. So the Tidecaster has the ability to give out that +1 to runs and charges, which I think is very good, and then turns off shooting wholly outside of 12. Those are on a 3+, and you pick one or the other. The other ability is the Riptide, where you can do an additional D3 mortal damage after someone retreats. After your opponent retreats, I should say. I'd really just be using this just to get my Thrall as a +1 to runs and charges. And then the Soul Render has the Lorelight ability, which is very, very strong. So you can pick up to 3 different friendly Namarti units wholly within 12 inches of him, and then you roll a D3 for each of those. On a 2+, you return a number of slain models. So it is a D3 2+, so it's not guaranteed, but if you can space him out close enough, he's going to be doing a lot of good stuff for you and bringing back models. He also has the Talon Hook, so if he gets into combat with the hero, you have a chance to just one-shot the hero. Love it. And then this is where, like I said, the army building is getting a little tricky, because I'm trying to get all of these heroes and get wizards and things so that you can build up those spirit points. So I'm bringing Lotan in this as well. He does a lot of really good things. I'm mostly just looking at him giving that reroll to cast. It does take a soul quota token, which means you have to kill an enemy unit to get one. But then he can also, his War Scroll spell goes off on a 7. It's called Empowered by Memory. And you pick a Idoneth Deepkin unit wholly within 18 inches of him, and they get crit auto wound. So the Thralls can get crit 2 hits. Some of them could be crit auto wound. I think there's a lot of ways to go there. So that's kind of why I have him, and just as another option to be casting spells. And then in the last regiment, I've got another Achillean Thrallmaster. You could also throw in another Soul Render here. The problem with the Soul Render is that you can only use the Soul Render's Lorelight ability. You can't use it twice on the same unit, so you couldn't go 2d3 on a 2-up or whatever. It might be nice to have 2 of them, though, because your Thralls might get a little spread out, and you won't be able to get all of them with the one guy, as well as your Reavers. So maybe bringing another Soul Render instead of a second Thrallmaster might be the play. It's 2,000 points exactly. that's kind of what I've built out for the Wardens of the Chorrileum. I don't know how to play this version of Idoneth Deepkin, I'll be honest. I know in 3rd edition there was a lot of bring 30 thralls because you could double reinforce, and so you'd have this giant block of just nightmare thralls. You put reavers into the boat. This is not exactly that, I don't think, but I think this is fairly close. It's just a ton of bodies. I think it's 105 models, 106 models on the board, and 130, 140 wounds, which is just a lot to chew through. Once again, you can bring units back, so if your thralls die or your reavers die, you can bring them back. I like it. I like the idea, the aspect of the storm, just like popping in somewhere, just wherever he wants to go, and immediately doing D3 mortals to everybody that's within 3 inches of him, and then just swinging with the thralls and going crazy. I like that a lot, but I'm not really 100% sure if I would play this all the time. But that is my look into the Armies of Renown. I think the first Phalanx of Ionrach is really cool because it's just like balls to the wall, let's go fight. The Wardens of the Chorrileum in the same way is kind of that as well, but since you're a lot slower, you kind of have to plan out and really manage your movement phase to get your thralls into the most advantageous positions, because the Eidolon can come in wherever he wants if you decide to throw him into the Ether Sea. And then the Eidolon being able to fight twice is so cool because he's going to do a lot of damage because he's Ren 2 if you're using the aspect of the storm. That's really cool. It's just hard to be able to guarantee that he's coming in because you need those spirit tokens. If you haven't already, like this video, subscribe to the channel. This is a little different than what we normally do. I'm trying to get some more stuff like this in, especially now that we have some of these newer books. We can do a little bit more content with them. I'm really heavily focusing on the Idoneth Deepkin because it's an army that I play and that I love. So keep an eye out for lore videos. We're going to be looking into just general list building with a lot of these armies that we're doing. So keep an eye out for those. If you're looking for how to play or what models you should get, keep an eye out for that. It's on the way. It's coming. We've been really busy lately outside of the channel, but I think now we're going to get back into a flow of things to be able to produce more content for you guys. So like, subscribe, comment. If you made it this far in the video and you've looked at the lists that I've made and you think I'm an absolute idiot, let me know in the comments. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.